All right, so the final assignment for this module is really just, it's a board. Okay, so I want you guys to be thinking about resolution. Okay, if you don't have a firm understanding of resolution, by the time you move on from this to the next module, then you're really missing out on something that's critically important in terms of creating image quality. So the board that we're creating, we're going to basically set it up so that we have one primary image, which is our final image, and we're going to have two secondary images that are going to be sort of paired up with it. So our board is going to be 24 inches by 48 inches. Okay? And I'll give you the exact sizes of these things, but really we're going to have one primary image like this, and then we're going to have two secondary images like this. Okay, and that's going to have 1 inch margins all around. So I'll walk you through setting it up here real fast, but the only other requirement I think I have is that I want it to be 150 pixels per inch. The resolution should be 150. Okay, so when we go to File, New, the resolution there is 150. And we can basically just set this by inches. So and I don't think we ever did this before, but if you just switch it to 48 wide by 24 tall, and then switch this over to points, you'll see that it, or sorry, pixels, that's what I meant, pixels, it actually gives you the pixel value. So I didn't change the other one properly, but 24, there you go. Okay. So that'll set us up just fine. Just hit OK. All right, so you already know that when you open it up like this, the rulers are going to be sort of your go-to to set up at least the outside margins. That's the easiest part of all this. And remember, if you hold Shift, you can drop your guides on each of the 1 inch marks. Simple enough, right? Not hard. All right. So the other part of this is what size these images are going to be. Okay. So the primary image, remember we have a 1 inch margin here, and I want the resolution to be relatively close between the two. So basically I broke it down as if there were 6 images on the page before I sized it out, and then I just merged this one into one unit. So what you'll find is that where there used to be a 1 inch gap between those two, that has now become a part of that image, so this image's resolution is slightly different than that one. Okay? So that's just, like, you need to be thinking about resolution when you're laying out your pages. But anyway, so the way I set it up is I want this to be 30 inches and this to be 22 inches. Okay, 1 inch there, 1 inch there, 30 inches there. Okay, so that's super easy. We just pull this over to 31 inches. And then we give ourselves a 1 inch margin. And then from 32 to 47, we're left with 15 inches. Easy enough, right? Now, the last one we got to do is just separate the middle one. So simply put, it's we start at 12. We just go up 1 inch. We go sorry, a half an inch. So I got to zoom in. My bad. I got to zoom in until I can see the half inch mark. There we go. So go to 12, go up a half an inch. Go to 12, go down a half an inch, and that gives us 10.5 inches here. Okay, so that's 15 up there, 10.5 here. Actually, 11.5. Did I do that? Yeah, no, 10.5. Sorry. Does that make sense? No magic to that, right? All right. So I don't have a specific order in which you need to put them. I don't really care whether or not you put your initial massing at the top or your second level of the project or second week of the project at the bottom. But these two spaces on the right are for your first two, basically, explorations, okay? And then the space on the left is going to be for your final image. Okay, so we're going to do this for both scales. Does that make sense? So you're going to have a studio scale board, and you're going to have a full scale board. Does that make sense? So if I ask you the question, when is the appropriate time to apply all of your titles and text that you're going to be using for these boards, what would be the correct response? You should do it now, right? Because you can save it as a templated copy, right? And you can have your text in exactly the same location with the exact same alignments and fonts and everything, colors, all pre-set up for you. Okay, so I don't have strict requirements for that. Actually, I should make strict requirements for that. Let's go a ½ inch up from the bottom of each image. So just drop one alignment line, or guide, I should say, ½ inch up from the bottom alignment, and then we're going to go a ½ inch in from each one. So I'll put a ½ inch there, and a ½ inch there. Okay, so I'm going to do all of my text right justified, and I'm just going to get it all set up right here, right now. You don't have to create all of your text and titles exactly the way they are right now. You could use like lorem ipsum text or anything like that if any of you are familiar with like typesetting and graphic design stuff. It's basically just like language that you fill in, or you could just call it Title 1 or something like that. These are going to have to be a little bit larger, but generally speaking, I mean, you need to kind of think about how big the text is going to be in reality, how far away you're standing from it. This is a really hard thing to understand. ½ inch text, let me see if I can sort of show you ½ inch text. Actually, this might be ½ inch text right here. I spelled title wrong. It's ¼ inch. Hang on a sec. Let's make this a lot bigger. Boom. Yeah, it's about ½ inch, a little taller than ½ inch. Yeah, it's about ½ inch. Okay, let's zoom out, see the whole page. Right there, it doesn't look that big, does it? The answer is no, it doesn't. So what I'm getting at is like ½ inch text is actually really, really big. We have this like sheet of paper up here. Our text isn't being read in points. This is an Illustrator convention, but ½ inch text is that. You can see that all the way from the back, can't you? Right? Well, if you're only standing 6 feet away from it, that's smacking you in the face. So generally speaking, I don't ever go above like 3/8 of an inch at the most, and frequently only a ¼ inch when I'm doing titles on a page. Okay? That's significant. So pay attention to that. It will take practice, but you know, as a convention here, we're going to stick with 24-point font. And it's really as easy as just kind of dragging it into its proper location. So Title 1 is going to be at the bottom. Remember, we need to make these right justified. And then you can just go through the process of duplicating. Oh, make sure, well, yeah, you probably should pick your font first too. Let's see, Myriad. I'm going to go with Calibri. It's a little lower profile, but it'll be okay. It's a little smaller. And then we will duplicate that and then just drag it into each of the positions that you marked out. I'm sure you're all brilliant enough to figure this out by now. Oops. There.
This edition of Photoshop doesn't have sub layers. Like every text title has to have its own layer. It doesn't have like a sub layer of text. For example, are you recording?
Yes. No, it's okay.
So for example, the latest Photoshop, right? You can have, for example, a layer that says text, and then you can have sub layers to that.
Oh, no, I don't know. I've not tried it on this one. I don't even know what version. I don't know if this isn't CSS. CS5. Yeah, we should upgrade to cloud. We really need cloud. Okay, so that's really it. I'm going to come around. I mean, I want to release you guys into work time for this, but let me just kind of reiterate this thing about resolution. Okay, so I mentioned, and we set this up for 150 pixels per inch, and we have a specific size that we're trying to generate. So when you're rendering, what are the settings that you need for your primary image? Okay, I don't mind, like, what we rendered so far for the two previously, I don't need you to re-render those. Okay, you're going to drop those images in, and I'll show you how to do this later on in the class today, but you drop the images in, and then you can just cut out the extra stuff. I don't mind that for the draft images. But for your final image, I want it to be rendered at the exact resolution. So what is that resolution? It's 22 inches by 30 inches. So what resolution are you guys going to set in Rhino or in Maxwell when you render it? You guys can shout it out whenever you've got it. Yeah, right? Shout it out. What's that? 3,300? Yeah. 3,300 by what?
By 4,500.
4,500. How did we get that?
You multiply the pixels per inch by the inches.
Yeah, pixels per inch. 150 times 22. And then 150 times 30. Okay? So you need to practice this. Okay? In the future, like for future projects, I'm going to tell you what size and what resolution I need, and you guys will have to figure out what resolution you need, resolution settings you need to export. Okay? So, primary lesson.
So you said pixels divided by
Multiplied by. Yeah, it's just a simple proportional relationship. So, you guys, I mean, if you're not familiar with this, you'll get used to it after you do it 2 or 3 times. Okay.
And then how do you last class you said you can view your settings in Photoshop? Go to image?
Yeah, go to image size, and it'll show you the pixel dimension and the document size in inches, or whatever else you set it to. Okay? Any other questions before we start doing some work time? All right, I'll probably jump back in here and show you guys like some setup tutorials, and I'll show you how to do like the cropping and everything like that for your preset images. One thing I guess as a final parting note is I want you to make sure that you're still developing your architecture. Okay, when I give you this amount of work time, I expect the actual model to be even more developed. Does that make sense? Okay, so the idea here is we're trying to show a progression through a design exercise. So while it won't be the most finely tuned, calibrated design, it should still show the level of progression through how detailed the model gets versus how you decide to represent it in rendering. Does that make sense? Yes?
Could your final model be completely different than the first 2 iterations?
Well, in reality, yes. Right, because maybe. The reality is, like, if you get yourself into a pinch and you have to scrap your design and redesign it, then yeah, maybe you won't have the same model from before, and you're still going to have to show how you got there. So yes, that's acceptable.
So you still have to show how you got there, right?
Yeah.
So you just have to scrap all your old...
No, keep the old ones. Show the new one.
Show the new one?
Yeah.
So just two exploration ones that are completely different from the final one?
Sure. You're not just pulling one of your design models and throwing it on the site, right? Okay.